This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so I just want to let you all, we're recording. And welcome everyone. This is Pacific Palisades Garden Club. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Mary Schultz Shanahan, and I'm the president of Pacific Palisades Garden Club. And tonight we have some of our board members here. We have Sherry Martin is our secretary. She can raise her hand. And Deanne Vandernoot is our second vice president. And Barita Belisis is our first vice president, and our treasurer, Joanne Bright. I didn't see her come in because I was away.
She's here.
Speaking to the Cabana man.
I'm here.
Okay, and Joanne is our treasurer. So those are all of our officers. And tonight we have the great honor of welcoming Scott Klittich from Otto and Sons Nursery out in Fillmore, and they have been growing roses. He and his siblings and parents have been growing them for over 30 years, right, Scott?
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
All of the different types, grandiflora, hybrid, and you name it, they grow it. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and welcome Scott Klittich.
Well, thank you for having me. It's fun doing a Zoom meeting. I always think, I've done a few of these Zoom meetings. It's always interesting how many people have wine glasses in their hand during the meeting. It's always, yeah, I saw that.
Brilliant idea.
So yeah, it kind of makes the meeting a little more enjoyable, I think, when you're lubricated up. But my name is Scott Klittich. My wife and I run the nursery, and the nursery has been around for, we're close to 50 years actually. And we've been in Fillmore here for 40 years. We have about, well, I'll get more into that, but let me start my talk here and see, make this work. Let's see. There we go. Here's a few things I'm going to talk about is just a nursery, a little history about our nursery, some of the things we have going, our calendar. Going to talk about new roses for 2022. And Mary mentioned that in the chat, there is a PDF that you can download of the roses I'll be talking about on that new for 2023. I didn't change that. Wow. Okay. Well, first mistake. I'm human. Look at that. And then we're going to talk about pest challenges also. So trust me, I've got the new roses for 23 in this slide deck, so you'll see that. My dad started the nursery, landscaped by Otto, back in 1960. They had moved to California, and he started doing landscaping back then, working for other companies, and started his own company. Slowly, he built that up to servicing the Los Angeles area, and then started doing a nursery. First, we had a ½ acre, an acre, then 2 acres in Chatsworth. We eventually expanded that nursery to out in Fillmore, sold the property in Chatsworth, and now we're completely out here in Fillmore since 1975. Our company, we service areas from San Diego to San Luis Obispo. We go to the Bay Area. In fact, we got trucks up there just today. About once a month we go up there. Our primary customer are wholesale nurseries and garden centers, building contractors, that type of thing. We have a small retail company presence there. We're only open Wednesday through Saturday, 8 to 4. We have all of our roses displayed out there so you can see them all. We have 35 amazing co-workers. That's include our drivers, our office staff, our nursery workers, our foremen, trimming staff, pulling staff. We have 27 acres just in Fillmore. It's our only location. We do have another 8 acres. We took out some 8 acres of Valencia orange orchard this last fall, and we're currently getting that graded, and eventually we'll get that irrigated and put more plants on it. We have an amazing website. If you ever go to it, it's got full of information. I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but at the top there it says order online. That's where you can go and you can actually see our live inventory, what we actually are carrying. And our learning center has a bunch of videos on there, how to trim roses, how to grow roses, different things we put up there. There was a big emphasis on that for during COVID, since we weren't able to have our normal classes. So we developed a bunch of videos on there, information about us and events we have, the commercial portal, which our commercial customers can log into and place orders, and our plant catalog. This kind of lists all the plants that we have in the nursery. and give you some characteristics on that. But the nice thing about it, down at the bottom corner here, the curbside pickup, you click on that, that'll give you a really nice filter where you can filter out between, you can do color and fragrance, disease resistance, and it gives you just a bunch of choices, and you can get down to a list that you're looking for. We've got that for the roses, and we're currently working on doing that for the fruit trees. That one should be up and running really soon. Let's see, okay. We carry 180 varieties of edible fruit. Over that, then, apples, peaches, plums, nectarines, rhubarb, artichokes, asparagus, the list goes on. We have quite a few edible fruit that we specialize in, all kinds of herbaceous perennials, lavenders, lantana, salvias, a bunch of things there. Over 700 varieties of roses, everything you'll see in the list down below there, hybrid teas, grandifloras, all the way down to shrubs, ground covers, large selection of David Austin roses, over 180,000 plants that we carry. So all kinds of roses. You see the picture there, a couple of our dogs and one of the rose fields, just lots of plants. Okay, our calendar in April, we just finished up our spring vegetable class. A nice crowd, about 40 people showed up for that, talking about how to grow a nice small space gardening. Our Rose Days event is in April here, 1920x1080, the Wednesday through Saturday, 8 to 4. We'll have rose sale. We've got some speakers. If you sign up for our web newsletter, you'll get an email regarding the classes we're offering for that. We're having a book signing, just lots of things going on those 4 days. We're going to have walking tours of the nursery, so you can walk through and see how we do what we do. In May, we have a citrus and berry class. In June, we do a summer rose care class, because oftentimes roses get beat up pretty good in the summertime. So it's a nice chance to take a look at those things. In October, we do a 40% off all the roses, kind of a chance for us to clear our inventory a little bit and give everybody a good deal. And then also we have this Harvest Day. We've done this the last few years. It's been a very kind of fun thing. The day before Thanksgiving, we invite the public to come on out and go to our display garden, our 1 acre display garden, and they can harvest roses to take back to their homes and make a display for their Thanksgiving table. So it's kind of a fun thing to do. People have a great time. They bring up, we limit everybody to 1 bucket each, so that there's a chance. And this last November, I think most everything was gone by 10 o'clock. They were even there. It was amazing how it's like a swarm of locusts. It was just cleared out, but it was fun. And then the following 2 days after Thanksgiving, we do a Black Friday sale, and we've done a 50% off all the roses for those couple days. In January, we do classes, winter rose care. Every Saturday for 2 hours, I do a class, or one of my kids does a class on how to dormant prune your roses. And then we also slip in there 2 other classes, one on deciduous fruit tree pruning, so you can learn how to prune your apples and nectarines and peaches and plums. And also backyard orchard culture. I have someone come in and do that one. And he's basically showing you how you can get more fruit out of your small yard using espaliers and multiple plantings, the same holes, that kinds of things. They're all very informative. All the classes are about 2 hours long. And then in March, we just have finished up our last one, Tomato Mania, well over 100 varieties of tomato seedlings, all different bizarre kinds and shapes and colors and flavors. So it's a fun event that we host for that, for Tomato Mania. Okay. All right, let's talk about new roses for 2023. You kind of see on the left there, that's how we get them. They're all kind of tied into bundles. They've all been trimmed on top. There's no soil involved. We get them, we plant them up, and what you get is what you see on the right. After 3, 4, 5, 6 months, we put flowers on there, leaves on them, develop the root systems into nice sized plants, and we get a couple kids to come by and model for us occasionally too. This is a listing of the roses, the new roses for 23. I'm going to talk about. I've got them sorted out here by the different vendors I buy them from. Star Roses has raspberry cupcake, top cream and buttercream drift. Weeks Roses has heavily scented, picture perfect uptown girl, morning glow and sultry night. Certified avant-garde Givenchy Lemontini Bee Haven. I love the name Bee Haven. David Austin has Silas Marner, And then we have our own that we've introduced called Pink Tumbleweed and Sesame Sunrise. And we'll talk about that each one along the way. Buttercream drift. Now here I need to look at my notes. A lot of these, the new roses for 23, I've not seen personally. We have them now in pots, but they're growing. They're not flowering yet. So I'm trusting the descriptions I find online and what my vendors have told me in the past. So I have to have this conversation with a bit of a caveat because I don't have personal experience with them. But from what they tell me, that's what I'm going to tell you, and we'll pass along. I was able to find pictures, some of the really nice, clear, beautiful pictures I got from my vendors. Other ones I was able to find online. I always think it's good to see online what other people have experienced. A lot of these roses maybe were in Europe someplace, so there's been some history on them and some photographs online. Some I could only find a single photograph on, but I'd like to see on this one, you see the buttercream drift. On left, Star Roses says it's a beautiful, nice yellow. But on the right, the picture I found, which I'm assuming is more true to form, is more of a washed out white yellowish tone. I do like the Drift Series roses. The whole series is a great choice for a low growing rose, good for borders, along sidewalks, pathways, driveways. They tend to stay about 18 inches tall, no more than 2 foot wide. They repeat bloom. You can see in the photograph on the right, you can see the flowers are in full bloom and there's multiple sizes of buds. So you'll constantly have repeat blooming. Most of the flower petals will drop off when they finish. So it's a nice clean plant. You don't need to take a lot of hedging to it to keep it looking attractive. So it's a buttercream drift. I do like those. Turn my page here. Raspberry cupcake, we had this one very strong. In fact, that picture on the left is actually from our garden. Strong fragrance, very strong disease resistance. Gets about 4 foot tall, 3 foot wide, nice cupped flower. The flower is about 4 inches across, a nice size, nice fragrance, good disease resistance. It's a really a good choice if you like that cupped look to it. Page over here. Top cream. This is another one from Star. It's white, but when it's cool weather, you'll see a bit of a pink blush to it, which is true for a lot of the whites. They in the cooler weather, maybe on the coast or in spring, you'll see a little pink blush to it. It also has a very strong fragrance, good disease resistance. It's a good cut flower. A number of cut flower people are looking at this one to grow for bouquets and such. It gets about 6 foot tall, so be sure to give it plenty of space. Put that in the back of your bed because it will get fairly tall and about 3 foot wide. Flowers are about 3 to 4 inches across. Heavenly Scented. The flower on the left is the one that I got from the company. The ones on the right I found in New South Wales in the UK. So it's more of a pinkish tone. So it could be that a photographer had a lot of pinkish lavender in his photography, or the plant actually gets that color. I'm not sure. You and I will find out this spring as they come into flower. I've been told by the breeder that it's more like the flower on the left, but I always like to look at things and see how they're doing. Large flowers, strong fragrance, strong disease resistance. I was speaking to the breeder just this last week. He came through for a tour, and one thing he mentioned, the breeder from Weeks Roses, he mentioned that he feels all of the new varieties that are coming out of his company are all, he put it in quote, disease free. He says it's always questionable if something's actually disease free, but he's not seen any disease on these varieties in any of his trial locations. So that's quite a statement to say that you think these are disease free. So obviously it has a very good disease potential, disease-free potential. So I'll be anxious to see how that actually plays out in the garden. Picture Perfect, another one from Weeks. Fuchsia pink, a little bit of white on the reverse. You can kind of see it there. This is the only picture I was able to find on this variety. It's quite a beautiful picture, but according to what they tell me, this has good disease resistance again, and also makes a good cut. This one will get about 5 feet tall. So again, give it some space in your garden. Uptown Girl, nice quartered flower, has that pink with a little bit of an orangey tone on the inside. Slightly has a nice fruity fragrance, which is good, and good disease resistance. This is a grandiflora, gets about 4 foot tall. Grandiflora means you'll get lots of petals, lots of flowers on a single stem. So that'll give you a nice bouquet on a branch, essentially. So that's an Uptown Girl. Morning Glow is a floribunda. Floribundas tend to have lots of flowers on the top of the canopy, generally a smallish flower. This one says it gets about 4 inches across on the flower, has average fragrance, which to me means probably not much. It's a good repeat bloomer in clusters, as most floribundas would be, but also has very strong disease resistance. It's about 4 foot tall. Sultry Nights, lavenders tend to have more disease problems, but he assures me this one is very strong with disease resistance. It has a really nice thing about many lavenders is they have strong fragrance. So that's a nice thing. I always like the fragrance. You gotta stick your nose in the rose. A nice size plant, a shrub rose. It gets about 3 by 3, so it's nice and compact. Flowers on the top. You can kind of see the picture on the right. The purple turns a little darkish purple as it ages. So you'll see that too as the flowers age in the garden. The one new roses we got from David Austin. David Austin roses are come from the UK. They are tend to have strong fragrance, lots of petals. They allow us to have only a few varieties, where their mail order has more varieties. And then as years go on, they'll release some of those new releases back to us, the wholesale growers. So then you can find those varieties in your gardens centers nearby. This is one they released to us called Silas Marner or Marner or Marner. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. We'll see. But it's nice pink, of course, strong disease resistance, repeats well, strong fragrance. That's one thing I like about the David Austin roses. They tend to always have strong fragrance. Flowers tend to be right on top of the canopy, often not really good for cutting unless you take a number of flowers, stems at a time, or flowers on a single stem at a time. So they can be working that way for bringing the cut in, but at least they'll last long in your garden, in your home in a vase. That was the only one we got from David Austin. Certified roses out of Arizona. They have avant-garde, striped roses. It's supposed to be a red on white, nice, maybe fading to a pink on white. Striped roses tend to be, people love them or hate them. I found, people just are attracted to them or they're offended by them and they walk away from striped roses. But they're different. It's definitely different. Each petal has a different pattern, different color, different look. This has average disease resistance, makes a good cut flower, has a mild fragrance, but it has that unique striped color. Hybrid teas, so the hybrid teas tend to have a single flower on a single stem, like you get from a florist, that kind of a look. This one gets about 5 foot tall. Da Vinci is an older variety from 1986 that they brought back because they really liked it. It has a strong spicy fragrance, average disease resistance, and it gets about 4 foot. Nice color tone, kind of a pinkish to a purplish tones on it. It's very attractive from what I can see. Lemontini. This is a new introduction here from Certified. It was actually introduced, the breeder on this actually is from Ireland. He has bred that in Ireland and released it to the US through Certified Roses. Has strong fragrance, strong disease resistance, makes a good cut rose, gets about 4 foot tall. So it looks like as it ages, you kind of see the stamens on the inside, but the earlier, younger flowers have that nice rose shape to them. And with that nice fragrance and disease resistance, it does make it desirable. Here's that Bee Haven I was telling you about. Almost looks like the one we just saw, right? Same kind of look, maybe not as many petals, has strong disease resistance. It makes a nice compact plant, about 4 foot by 3 foot. It's a floribunda. This is one that we have reintroduced. It's one that's been around for a long time, but I've gotten did some custom growing on it, and it's called Classic Woman. Been around for a while. In fact, if you know Yves Piaget, this is called Cream Yves Piaget. Blooms about 3 inches across, very heat tolerant. Not that you're concerned about that on the coast, but it works well for that. Strong disease resistance and a really nice fragrance. It holds well in a vase. I mean, you can do a cut rose and bring it in. You'll get 7 days on this stem alone. So it's really a good cut rose, Classic Woman. This is Sesame Sunrise. This is another one that we're introducing. This is one from the breeder Chorus out of Germany. We acquired this one because Cindy and I were touring the test roses up in Bakersfield, where a lot of them are tested, and we really like this one. It's a nice apricot, and they didn't know what to do with it. It says we'll take some, so we had them custom grow some for us. We brought in. We've been marketing. We call it Sesame because the mountains behind us here are the Sespies, with Sesame River coming out of the Ojai area, and with that apricot-y color, just seems like a sunrise. Very strong. You can plant. You can see the leaves on the right, how glossy they are. Oftentimes glossy leaves tell you they're very disease resistant, and it's very true in this case. Nice stems on it, strong stems, makes us a good cut flower, lasts well in a vase, has a wonderful, wonderful fragrance. Gets about 5 foot tall. And Pink Tumbleweed, this is another one, the same situation. We came across this and we really liked it. It's kind of a micro mini miniature rose. It only gets about 12, 15 inches tall. It has not just hundreds, but thousands of flowers. If you look at the picture on the left next to Woody, our dog there, there's tons of flowers on there. And right behind those buds are even more, and even behind those even more. It just gets tons and tons of flowers. No fragrance, of course, but it's just a nice splash of color, and it's good for a border right along a pathway. That's how we've been using it, as you can see on the right picture there. And it just goes really, really well with,
We lost you a little bit there, Scott. Are you there, Scott? Can anybody else hear him?
No, I can't hear him.
Okay.
No, we lost him. Maybe you have to call him.
Oh, Garuda, can you call him?
Looks like he's offline. I don't see his picture.
Well, he'll be back. Shoot. All right, let's pause the recording.
give me a second, go back to there. All right, this is where we stopped, right?
Right there,
Yep.
yeah.
Then you go to here.
With your, right there.
Right there. Okay, pick it right back up. Sorry about that. So anyway, so I was saying you go to Amazon and you can buy 50 rare, multi-colorful rainbow rose flower seeds, beautiful flower potted plant home garden, all for $7.09. And look at that. Look at what you can get. All those flowers on one bush, don't you think? And how about that? A flower bud with all those colors. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? This is just the biggest ripoff that I've seen. You know, they'd sell this, and sure, in theory, all the genetics are there, but how much do you look like your brothers and sisters, right? That's how seeds work. We're all different from each other. But anyway, just a bit of brevity there. Okay. Any questions about the new roses before I move on to pest and disease issues?
Are you saying the rainbow rose is hype?
Yeah, I like the red one with the stripes on it. I think that's pretty, or the white one with stripes.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, kind of cool. But you'll find this a lot of places, and they must sell it because it's up there. But people fall for it, not realizing that this is a total scam. And yeah, you might get some plants coming up that'll have a flower, but not something very desirable. So, okay, we're going to talk about diseases and pests now. One of my favorite things. Oh, someone's got their hand up. Chris, you have a hand up?
Yeah, do you mind, may I ask you? That was fascinating, and actually my husband and I, who's like way in the background, have been many times, and we have many of your roses. And what is so helpful, other than having so much fun going up and down and looking at all the different roses and sticking noses in and smelling, and is the really detailed description about what you're going to find. And we've moved from the Palisades to Ojai. And so we've got sort of like opposite planting that we're used to. So everybody else on here is, coastal and, mildew and stuff from the ocean. Really rely on, good for hot, or, there's a lot of stuff that's helpful to us when we were picking roses. But what's really interesting is with all the new roses, for example, I think it was that yellow one from Ireland, for example. I mean, so if you buy a new rose, you're sort of beta testing, I guess is what I would say, right? You're part of the group that is seeing how it works in different climates. I just was wondering your input on that.
Well, certainly what we do is I find information out from the vendors. I try and see what they say about their variety. Some say they disease resistant or strong or mild or average. And then certainly over time, I hear from you and say, oh, that yellow just faded so bad in the heat. It just didn't do well. And we'll update our information when we find out that information. So certainly that is helpful. So the list is always changing. We're hearing things from people. Oh, I'm on the coast. Oh, mildew magnet, it got rust so bad. So we'll change that as we learn, because oftentimes they're tested, and they're tested in Georgia, they're tested up in Oregon, or they're tested in Pennsylvania. So different climates are not like our climate here, because we have such extremes, and it's different for us. And we go from the coast, like you say, up to Ojai, where it's plenty warm. And so certain varieties do well, and certain varieties just don't do well. So we update along the way. That is true. Okay. So it's a constant beta testing, I suppose. So I do like to hear things. So by all means, I will. That helps our list get better and better every time someone suggests something.
Thank you.
I see Pam wanted to know, what can I spray to discourage squirrels from eating the buds on new roses? The only thing I know that discourages squirrels would be cats. All right, the squirrels are just challenging. You can put poison bait out, which I don't like because it affects your local cats or local animals. You can there are some traps you can get out to catch them live, and then euthanize them along the way, which is kind of a grisly thing to do. Cats are really kind of mild, and they kind of take care of the wildlife. So there is no spray that I know of that you can put on any plant that will discourage squirrels. I know you can buy things like lion urine and coyote urine and garlic stuff that smells like a bad Italian restaurant. You can put all that stuff out there, and it really is smelly and stinky for a few days. But the animals get used to it when they realize there's no harm to them when they go near it. That's the thing with a lot of it. So that's why you've got to be more proactive and either do a cage, some sort of a caging trap, and euthanize the animal, or like I said, I think cats are great. Go down and get some feral cats, look for barn cats, put them outside. That's my choice. Do you have any suggested thornless, minimal thorn varieties for our area? Delphi, years ago, there was a whole line of thornless roses, and we carried them, and this is going back probably 25 years ago. Maybe it's changed now, but that was like the last thing on anybody's list for a rose. The first thing was always fragrance. Stick your nose in it. It smells great, and then the next thing was color. Oh, that's my favorite color. I love that color. And then, the list of thornless gets way down on the list of desirability, because a lot of people assume it's a rose, gonna have a few thorns. But I will tell you that on our website, through our filters that you can go through, And if you type in the search for thornless, some of them will pop up, that'll list minimal amount of thorns. We have included that in that search function, so you'll see that. What about some herbs to deter squirrels? Are roses sensitive to herbs planted near like rosemary? No, in fact, many of your herbs are very good, work well around roses. They are complementary, I think. I don't know that rosemary would deter squirrels, but maybe sometimes the rosemary would be, I'm thinking some of the taller rosemaries actually could be a place where the squirrels would harbor and they would make a home under the rosemary. Marigolds, I don't know about marigolds. I know I've seen people try to use marigolds, and I don't know that it's real successful with squirrels or not. I know people have tried to use them for keeping aphids away, that kind of thing. And if you like marigolds, I don't see why you wouldn't put them around your garden. And same thing with rosemary. I can see putting that around also. Last year, 3 of my roses succumbed to rose borers. Rose borers, you know, there are a number of, oftentimes they come, you bet. Oftentimes the rose borers come after you do pruning, and they when the stem is freshly cut, a rose borer can get in there and lay its eggs in the fresh cut stem. Some people, to avoid that, will use a white glue and just put a dab of that on the freshly cut stem to seal that off so that borers cannot get in there. Once the borers are in the stem, there is no pesticide you can put on there that will control them. The only thing you can do is with actually manually pruning that branch and cutting that borer stem out, and then removing that stem. That's the only way to deal with rose borers. Some years are more susceptible than other years, so you'll see that along the way, that you'll get more some years than other years. Yeah. Okay.
Is there something you can spray on for rust?
Oh, for rust. We're going to get to rust, but yeah, I'll mention right now. There are the Immunox is a spray that you can put on there. It's by Spectracide, and it controls all the major diseases: powdery mildew, black spot, and rust. But the biggest thing with rust is try to avoid the varieties that get it. So if you get a plant that's got a lot of rust, either remove it and make your life easier that way and put something else there, or realize you only have those disease problems in spring, and then with our climate we'll be changing, and because all those diseases are developed through the weather. So there's a certain amount of night temperatures, day temperatures, humidity during the day, humidity at night. When those factors lock into certain things, the diseases will start to grow. The fungus will sporulate and it'll start to grow and infect the plant. But then once we get past that, I know in our area, usually about June, we start to dry out and we don't have any more disease issues. So sometimes you'll have a plant like Abraham Darby, which is a beautiful, beautiful English rose. It's a really large plant, nice apricot, lots of petals, great fragrance. Oh, devastated by rust. But so you just say, okay, so in spring, I'm going to have an ugly plant with rust. And then once June gets here, the new foliage is going to come out, it's going to be clean, and I won't have a problem the rest of the year. Those are your two choices. You can spray for it with any kind of spray for a fungus. You have to be proactive. You have to get out there every week or every other week and spray to control the fungus. Or and then once you start to see it, once you see the rust, the plant will not heal itself. That leaf is infested and eventually will die on and fall off the plant. And the new leaf will come on out, and hopefully the weather has changed, and then you'll have a better looking foliage and flowers. So it's weather dependent. That's where you get it.
Okay, here's something else.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, I bought Over the Moon from you, and it is to die for, incredibly gorgeous. And I planted it under a jacaranda tree.
Oh.
Where I had a space and a few other roses that I was getting rid of, and it did incredibly well, and it's still doing incredibly well. So because there's no leaves on the jacaranda right now, but I use it for shade in the summer. So I went out with John, who saw the labs that day and ended up with Missy. And I bought 4 more over the moon. I planted another one next to the one under the jacaranda, and it's doing super well. And I planted 3 in the front garden along in the soil I bought from you and fertilized with the fertilizer I bought from you. And they're all about a foot tall and not doing well at all. I haven't figured out what it is I've done wrong.
And Carl, what city are you in?
Pacific Palisades.
Okay, we're on the coast there still.
Yep.
You know, obviously I can't diagnose it, but it could be something as simple as the ground there is wetter. It's a lower part of your garden. It could be a sprinkler issue. It's getting more or less water than it needs. Things like that would make a difference.
So more water is better than less?
No, it's if you put too much water, it's going to drown it, and of course too little, it's gonna suffer. So it's not, you know, I can't diagnose it to be able to say which one, but I would go out there and take a trowel and dig down about 4 inches and see what the soil's like. It's probably pretty wet at this point this year with all the rain we've had, I'm sure.
Everything is. So the ones under the tree that get the shade and probably less water are doing better than the ones out front that get soaked. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But they are blooming out front right now, which surprises me.
But only,
They're just short.
only a foot tall, you're saying, so that's not the best thing either. Yeah.
You know, I have hope this summer they'll grow up when the weather sorts itself out.
Yeah, and just and nutrients is always important too. Maybe there's some other nutrients that you give it an extra shot of fertilizer. See if that would help kick it into gear. Sometimes what's the old saying? The first year they sleep, the second year they crawl, the third year they leap. I don't know, there's some phrase like that. Essentially,
It's an incredible rose. It really, really is.
Over the moon, nice apricot. And so that's so all those things, be patient. It's only been in the ground a year, I'm guessing, you said?
Yep.
Yeah, so give it through this spring, see how it does. Hopefully it will decide it likes it where it's at. Okay.
No worries.
There it is.
Keeping
Sleep,
it.
creep, then leap. Someone remember that. Thank you, Pam. Appreciate that. Sleep, creep, then leap.
Thanks, Pam.
Yeah, good.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, let's continue on with disease and pest control. One of the most important things about disease and pests is identifying what you're dealing with. The worst thing is that you just all of a sudden grab something off the shelf and it doesn't do anything for the problem you have. So you need to be able to identify that you've got an aphid or a mite and not powdery mildew. I mean, there are differences in powdery mildew and downy mildew. There are differences, and the products you use on them are different. So we're going to go through a few little bit of ID here and talk about ways to control them along the way. All right, come on. Okay, here's some great shots of some aphids on roses. Hopefully your garden does not look like this. Top to bottom, it's the rose aphids. It's rose colored even, and then the black ones on the right. When they're black, that tends to be that they've already been parasitized with a beneficial insect. Aphids are born pregnant, so that's why their populations can just zoom up, and all of a sudden they weren't there yesterday, and now you've got this huge amount all over the place. A number of ways to control them, but one of my favorite is just a strong stream of water, just to go through the hose and wash them off, top and bottom, just go up and down, wash them off, knock them off, and that will reduce the population tremendously, and that will help keep your plants cleaner. You'll hear that theme a lot as we go through and talk about that. Some of the beneficial insects you can purchase, or maybe you have them already in your garden flying around, are lacewings. Lacewings look like little alligators that go around and they grab aphids and they suck the juice out and grab another one and suck the juice out and work their way up and down the plant. They're really good. You see the lacewing eggs in the bottom left there. You see they kind of look like a little egg on a tiny filament. That whole thing is maybe 1/8 of an inch tall, so you need your glasses to see them out there, but you'll see them in your garden. They will actually hatch out of that little egg and crawl down the stem, and they'll eat the first thing that comes to them. And if it's one of their brothers or sisters, they'll eat them. They are just voracious eaters. They will just continue to eat. And then eventually they will pupate as insects do. And you'll see up on the upper right there, the lacewing adult. They come in brown and green. You'll see those out in the garden, just floating around. Sometimes you'll see them at your light at your backyard light or something by the window or the door. They just feed on nectar when they're adults, but when they're a larva, that's when they do the most consuming, when they're out there going through your plant. So if you have that growing out there, that's a good thing. You're got a good thing going on. Many people like to use ladybird beetles. I'm not a real fan of ladybird beetles, but if you have them, great. You'll see the larva there in the upper left, the orange and kind of blackish tone. They will crawl up and down again, looking for aphids or mites or any kind of insect, and they will consume them. Their eggs are on the bottom left. You'll see there a little yellow grouping of yellow eggs. And of course, you're all familiar with the ladybird beetle adult. The reason I don't like ladybird beetles is they're just so mobile. You buy a bag of them, you put it out in your yard, and boom, they're gone the next day because they're looking for some food. And if the food is 3 blocks away, that's where they're at. You're helping the neighborhood. They're not necessarily helping your garden. So you'll see that they just fly away. So that's the ladybird beetle. And let me back up a second, and then for control on aphids, again, you can use water. There are some pesticides you can use. Pyrethrins and oils. Oils are always good for an organic way of controlling your aphids, but I think water is just a very successful way. And again, once it gets warm, the aphids won't be a problem. They like that soft new tissue that you see in spring. Spider mites are another problem. And then you'll see that when it's hot and dry. You probably don't see that too much on the coast, but our friend from Ojai would probably see this. When it's hot and dry, the spider mites hopefully doesn't get so bad as the one on the left there, where you see actually a spider netting. You can see a little brown or tan reddish dots. Those are actually the spider mites themselves on the left. The damage they cause, you see on the right there, a little stippling look where it's the insect actually goes through and sucks the juice out of the cell, which kills that cell, gives you that spotted look on it on the leaf. And mites really enjoy having it hot and dry, like I say. So one way to control that, the easiest way, is water. Take water, a nice steady stream of water, hose it down, wash it off top to bottom. You can use oils, but the problem with oils is that they tend to suffocate the plant, which you don't want to do in the summertime. This is a summertime pest, and oftentimes when it's hot, you have mites. Oils work really well, but they're also suffocating the plant. And you don't want to do that because you can't actually defoliate the plant if you put an oil on when it's too hot. So that's why I like water. Water, again, wash it off top to bottom, left to right, and that will mess up their nests and the webbing, and that will help clean them up. Western flower thrips are our general thrip problem we've had for forever since, but we've had, and what the damage they do, you'll see on the flower bud on the left, they scrape the cells on the petals and they make it unattractive. All right. And if you peel that flower back, usually on the lighter colored flowers, you'll see these yellow thrips, tiny things running around. They're pretty quick. You'll see them right at the base of the petal. And you'll know that you have Western flower thrips. And I always tend to think if I have more than 5, 7 per flower, then it's time to treat because you're getting a lot of damage. So at that point, we would go through and treat for Western flower thrip. And the best product for this is an organic product called Monterey Garden Insect Spray. It has spinosad in the product itself. And that is organic bacterium that when you spray on the leaves, the thrip will consume it. And then the bacterium then consumes the thrip. So it's a good organic way of controlling. It works really well. Yes, Monterey Garden Insect Spray. That's what it's called, Monterey Garden. There's also Captain Jack's is another product that you'll see around. Those both have the same product in it, just different people, different companies carry one or the other. Chili thrips is a newest pet on this one, and it's arrived in 2005. And the problem with this is you can't really see the critter. This critter is really tiny, and the adults are just 2 millimeters long. And the nymphs, the smaller ones, when they're younger, you need almost a microscope to see them. And what they do is they scrape, but only scrape the new tender foliage, kind of at the very top of the plant. You'll see on the left there the black markings, and that kind of makes the part that wasn't damaged by the insect, the part that's not damaged will grow. So you'll see a distortion of the stem coming up, so it kind of curls around. And then so you get this weird looking, like you see on the bottom right there, where it's kind of blackened and very unattractive. The flowers are bad. If you have that, you want to go through and trim that off, and you'll spray this again with that same product, Monterey Garden Insect Spray. That organic product works really well to control this. You want to do it a couple times in a row, about a week apart. Yeah, that's for the chili thrips. It's not too much. I haven't heard too much along the coast, but I've heard it more inland. This is a summer loving pest. You'll see this in the June, July, August is when you'll see this pest. Rose slug. Now this is a pest you'll see along the coast. It does like the cooler weather along the coast. The rose slug is actually a fly maggot, and what the slug does is you'll see it out there, generally on the underside of the foliage, and it just consumes the top layer of the leaf surface, and it makes these holes kind of like a window glass look to it, right? So you kind of have those holes like that. And again, the same product, Monterey Garden Insect Spray, will control this really well. And you'll see this, if you want to go see the actual larva, go out there at night with a flashlight and flip over a few leaves. You'll find it on the underside of the leaves at night. During the day, they tend to go down in the soil, and they kind of hang out in the soil litter down there underneath it. Okay. Leaf cutter bees. This is a solitary native bees, and they will cut a leaf portion out, and they will use that for their nest. And you'll see that on the left there, where they're actually cutting a piece of leaf out, kind of a half circle. You see on the right there, it kind of leaves a kind of interesting look on the foliage. They take that back to their nest, and they will make a nest for their brood. There's no real way to control this kind of a pest because it's a singular insect. Like one bee in your garden will do all this damage. So there's no way you have to nuke your entire yard to kind of control that, and you'd be harming more beneficials than you would be the one critter you're trying to get. So for this one, let the bee have their fill. Once they're done, trim your plant back and a little bit of fertilizer, nutrients, and they'll the plant will come back. So you're doing your part to help the native bees make their nests and do what native bees do. Powdery mildew, moving away from insect pests, moving into fungal disease. I kind of talked a little bit about the control on this already. Powdery mildew is the most prominent disease you probably see on the coast. It likes warm days and cool nights, and it likes a higher humidity. So you get fog, you get clearing during the day, and you'll get powdery mildew. Certain varieties are certainly more susceptible than other varieties, and you'll see that looks like someone threw flour all over your foliage. It's that kind of a look to it. To control that, guess what? Water. Powdery mildew does not like 100% water. So just washing your plant off, again, will control a lot of your fungus and reduce that quite a bit. You still might have some, but the washing does a really good job. At the nursery, we actually run our overhead sprinklers early mornings, primarily not for irrigation, but for disease control, to help wash the foliage, to keep it cleaner. And it does a good job.
But what time do you run those sprinklers?
We try to run them within 2 hours of sunrise. So that way the water is not on there 100% for a long period of time. So that's what we try and do.
Okay.
Thank you for the question. Okay. Black spot, you'll probably see a lot of black spot this year because black spot likes a lot of water and it likes a lot of high humidity. So you'll see that, on the bottom left, you'll see those black dots. And then when it gets worse, up on the upper right, you'll see the leaves will turn yellow and the leaves will fall off. I had an opportunity to go back east to Florida and Georgia for a wedding we went back to, and we toured some gardens. We always tour gardens when we go on trips. And it was just devastating to see these beautiful rose plants with this single flower on this long stem and not a stitch, a leaf on there, because the black spot had defoliated everything. So I felt quite pleased that we live in California where we don't have such a black spot issue. Black spot is definitely a wet weather, high humidity challenge, and but each variety is more or less susceptible. But it's also, what do you say? It's brief. Usually our time when we have black spot is very brief. So by the time you see something like you see on the upper right there, and you were to go down the store, grab your spray, come on back and spray it the next weekend, the weather's changed and it's no longer black spot season. So it's kind of like, you have leaves like this. Generally, I would suggest you go through with a high pressure nozzle, knock those leaves off. They're loose. They're not attached really well. That'll knock them off, clean them up, rake them off. Just doing that makes the plant look a whole lot better. By then, the weather has changed and the black spot's no longer an issue for you for the rest of the season. So, but there are some sprays that, what I mentioned earlier, Immunox, you can spray that by spectricide. You'd have to put that on there about, again, every other week and do it for about 6 weeks or so. So about 3 applications, and that will control the black spot during that period of time. Rust, I mentioned rust earlier. Frustrating that there's no water will not help rust. Rust just is, the plant is susceptible. So I suggest changing it to another plant or just being patient until the weather changes. Rust can be rather devastating. It will defoliate a large portion of the plant, looking unattractive, but then the weather changes and then boom, you've got better looking leaves that push out during the drier weather. But that's rust for you. The spray I mentioned before, Immunox, will control rust, and you need to spray for it ahead of time. Again, you have, when any of the fungus, you have to spray before there's an outbreak. Downy mildew, we've seen a little bit of downy mildew this year. You see that on the right, on the left side there with the purple leaves. It's another fungus, totally different than powdery mildew. To control that, there's a product that you would use to control that would be Agrifos. It's actually a fertilizer, Agrifos, Agrifos, Agrifos. You spray that on the plant and that protects it, actually encourages the plant to protect itself from the downy mildew. Let's see, we took your dormant tree class. Our peach tree has curling. We did use a dormant spray. What do we do now? Okay, so iPhone IV wants to know what to do with peach leaf curl, it's called. It's actually a bacterium. And peach leaf curl, you get when let's see, when the buds are just swelling on a peach or nectarine tree. And if you have not sprayed with a dormant spray, and what dormant spray is a copper product called copper product is called copper spray. See, I'm not in the mode of winter dormant spray right now, but the copper product, if I think about it, I'll mention it. And yeah, so so you need to spray it. And what may have happened, Ivy, is that you only maybe did it one time, and it actually takes at least twice. We did it at our nursery 3 times this year because there was just so much rain and it was so cold. It took a while for the buds or leaves to actually push out. So now, okay, let's say, so you've got peach leaf curl. The curl itself is not harming the plant. It's more aesthetics. The plant looks really ugly. You'll get insects that'll hide inside there. Spiders like to hide in there, beneficial spiders, different things will find homes in that curling leaf. But if it's unattractive, it's near your yard, your backyard, where you're actually looking at it more, you can certainly go through. And what I've done is I would grab the stem and I kind of grab it and pull on the stem, and those leaves kind of pull off, and it kind of strips the foliage off that are all curly. And that way new leaves will then replace those. Okay, so remove the stems, and then you can remove the leaves from the stems, And then there's no point in spraying now because we're beyond, we should be beyond our winter weather now. I think that's the last storm we just had this last week. And you should not see any more peach leaf curl. All right. So that's probably a long explanation for a short question. Virus, roses get a number of viruses. The viruses come in generally from the people we buy the plants from. So they're in the fields, they're in the budwood, the propagation material that that were used to create the plant. And they come in, different colors, stripes and blotches and different yellowing. Generally speaking, the viruses will weaken the plant because there's some stuff going on there that the plant is trying to cover up. You'll see viruses primarily in spring here. And once things warm up, the actual chlorophyll within the leaf will then hide the virus, the yellowing. You won't see it then. So now is the time to go out in your garden and see which ones have virus. If you do have virus plants, you have a couple of choices. You can ignore it or you can remove it. There's nothing you can spray, nothing you can do. It will not transmit from one plant to another. It's only within that particular plant. All right. So the only way that it could transmit is if potentially there was a root graft or something like that underground. That would be a possible place where it would transmit the virus back and forth. Herbicide damage. We see this a lot. People like to use Roundup in their garden. It's a very effective weed killer. But if you get on your roses, it will create this witch's broom kind of look to it, kind of all short, spindly growth. The plant generally will grow out of it unless it's gotten a real bad dose of it. But it may take it 2 or 3 years to grow out of that damage, and it will be weak for those 2 or 3 years. So sometimes if it's an older plant and it got accidentally touched with Roundup and you see this damage, you might just replace the plant to save yourself some frustration in the future. But that's Roundup. Not to be confused with this other thing you might see online is rose rosette disease. Rose rosette disease is a very serious disease east of the Rockies. We don't have it west of the Rockies, but you might see plants that exhibit the same reddish foliage. It's very devastating to gardens east of the Rockies. A lot of people have a hard time dealing with it. Oftentimes you've got to destroy the plant once it gets infested like this. But fortunately, we don't have it out this way. One reason we don't have it out this way is because this plant has a life cycle where it needs to go on other plants that let it overwinter, and we don't have those other plants here. We don't have wild roses in our mountains where they can grow on. Our mountains are mostly full of sage and brush because of such a dry climate. So it's more of a wet climate issue, again, east of the Rockies. So we don't have it here, thank goodness. Green eye, sometimes you'll see this in your garden. Anybody of you seen that in your garden? Anybody I can see? Yeah, I see people shaking their head. Yeah, this is caused by over-fertilization. Certain varieties are susceptible to it. Certain varieties are not. It's actually in a certain gene and it will develop that eye. That eye is just the seeds on the inside growing. So cut back on your nitrogen fertilizer. Try to use a fertilizer that's lower in nitrogen, and then that will help. Some people, I heard a florist tell me that they really like the green eye. It's quite attractive for a floral bouquet. So in that sense, it can be made into a positive versus I would consider it kind of a negative in my garden, but depends on the beauties in the eye of the beholder, as they say. So that's that one. So
Hey, Scott, do you know if that's natural to the ranunculus? Someone's asking that question.
I do not know that at all. I don't know much about ranunculus, and I just know that certain varieties that the picture on the right is one that I have in my garden called Perfect Moment, and it will do that when I fertilize too much. So that's
Which element is making it more green? The iron?
the nitrogen.
Nitrogen.
So you want to cut back on your nitrogen fertilizer. What variety grows on the cover slide? Which cover slide? Barb and Ed. I can't hear you, Barb. You're muted.
The very first one that
First slide.
the Baruda asked you.
Oh, did I miss that?
I think you said living something.
Oh, on the first, okay, yeah, behind me, you said.
It
Okay.
was living easy.
It's Living Easy. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Living
Living
Easy. It's a very nice orange floribunda. It's just a great variety, disease resistant, and it's just a good variety. That first slide, got it. Okay, and with that, a picture of our garden. We have a display garden in the nursery. Hopefully you get a chance to come see it. This is in full bloom last year, and we've got a pond, nice pathways to wander through. So I hope you can all make it sometime and come see our garden. Any other questions I can help you with?
No, I enjoyed your native plant section now that it was there last year when I bought my orchids. That was very interesting to see.
Oh, good.
If I bought some native sage, it's beautiful on the back of the roses.
Get the Winifred Gilman with the blue flowers.
Pardon?
You get the Winifred Gilman that has the blue flowers.
Yeah.
Oh, I
she's
don't know. It hasn't bloomed. It's just
Oh, okay,
gray, gorgeous leaves, a foot tall. It's wonderful.
good.
Yep. No, it's an experience going out to your gardens. It's really beautiful. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe we can figure out a tour for our members.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to have you guys out here. Just bring a lunch and a bottle of wine and come enjoy yourselves,
Oh, that sounds good.
right?
Does anybody else have questions for Scott?
I see one on here said, what fertilizer do you recommend? I like the Grow Power fertilizer. And it's I can't remember the numbers right now. It's a 438, something like that, 483. I like it because it's a combination of organic fertilizer and also but it also has a chemical fertilizer in it, and it will it kind of feeds your soil biology. It also has a soil penetrant, so it allows moisture to get into your soil so it doesn't just run right off. So the Grow Power I really like. We also carry another one called GMB Rose and Flower. I think that's a real good organic one. That one is totally organic. That works really well. Then we also have one in the nursery. The one that we use in our nursery is a 29.9. It's a completely chemical-based fertilizer, no organic at all. The 20% is a nitrogen source called Nitroform that releases its nitrogen over a 3-month period. So it's a 29.9, but that 20% is over 3 months. So it's actually is a slow release fertilizer. It works really well. I like it because it's active during the warmer months. The soil has to warm up and the soil biology needs to activate it to release the nutrients. So it's those are the ones I like. So let's see, let me back up here to, there was a question. Love Winifred Gilman. Leaf curl hurt the fruit. Leaf curl will not hurt the fruit, but it could, if you get a lot of aphids, say, in that curling leaf, because they're protected, you can get sooty mold, which is a black scum that grows on the foliage, and that black scum could get on the fruit. So which would wash off, but it just looks unattractive. So in that case, yes, it wouldn't hurt the fruit, makes it look unattractive, but could be washed off. Self-serving question, what is this mystery rose planted by our garden? Okay. Boy, you put me on the spot here, mystery rose. It could be Pink Promise. It looks similar to that, I think. Anybody else have any ideas on that pink rose? Chris would like to know. Any other thoughts?
Nope.
Do you have the picture?
It's on the chat. If you want to look at the chat, it's a picture on the chat. I've got my chat window here open, so I'm looking at it.
Oh.
How can you see it?
There's pictures.
All I see is the symbol of the PDF
Oh,
or the JPEG.
Maybe you need to scroll down then. Maybe you're at the top. The JPEG was the first item on there. Or the
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Mrs. Miniver.
Could be.
We've got a real brain trust here. We should be able to figure this one out, right?
Mrs. Miniver.
Emily.
Who said it? Emily.
Yeah, it's always hard to see a single rose. I always prefer to see a picture of the whole plant. And then also, and because that can tell you a lot as far as a habit, whether it's bushy or tall or short or fat or a climber. When you just see a single rose, it makes it more challenging to see. It's also helpful to see a profile of the flower. And by all means, I am no expert when it comes to roses, in that there are tens of thousands of varieties out there. I just know a small slip of them. So if I can remember it and I've had it, then I can give you my best guess. But this one, it looks like kind of like a pink promise, but then the rounded petals look interesting. So I'm not quite sure.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
Nope, I appreciate the talk, Scott. It was wonderful. Thank you so very
Thank
much.
you so much for taking the time to
Yes, Scott.
to us. Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Great.
Glad for
Yeah,
having
that
me.
was great. Thank
Oh.
you.
I'll take your suggestions and go have a glass of wine now.
Okay.
And we'll come in, we'll reach out to maybe have a tour of the garden.
You bet. That'd be great. We are going to give a tour of the garden on Rose Days on the Friday and Saturday. We're going to first do a walking tour at, I want to say 10 o'clock, and then 11:15, we're going to give Cindy will give tours of the garden on our Rose Days. So it'll be something if you manage to.
Is that April 19, 20?
Yeah, that Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So
There's a lot going on in the community. Santa Barbara has their flower show that day too.
it's springtime. Everything's going then, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's
we're
right
trying to
after
figure it all out over here.
Yeah, you
It's
can't.
right after Easter.
Got to make choices.
Yep.
Okay, well, we really
Scott?
appreciate that you gave a wonderful presentation, and please email me contact information so we can figure out our garden tour.
Sure, that'd be
Now,
great.
does anyone else have any questions before we go?
I just wanted to tell Scott to say hi to Andy for me.
I will. Cindy already sent him a picture off. She took a picture of my screen and sent it off to Andy with your dog. Yeah.
I sent him quite a few.
Yeah.
Thank
you. It was
Thank
great
you.
program.
Bye.
Okay,
Thank
all
you.
right, well, thank you so much, Scott.
All right.
Wonderful
you.
presentation.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Go have your wine.